Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2, where on this episode of the Tyranid Faction Deep Dive, we will be going through the remaining 4 detachments you can choose from while running this army. That being Synaptic Nexus, the Unending Swarm, the Warrior Bioform Onslaught, and ending with the Vanguard Onslaught, which is the detachment I am currently running when I play, both competitively and just with my friends on my own time. So stick around, and hopefully I can teach you something about the Hive Mind. So, getting right into it with the Synaptic Nexus. Very similar to Invasion Fleet, this also mirrors Gladius, not in flavor of units you can take, where instead of being a very generalist, it does kind of guide you, but more specifically with the detachment rule, which is Synaptic Imperatives. Very similar to Gladius, this does have 3 imperatives you can call at the beginning of any round. It's at the start of the battle round. You can select one of these Synaptic Imperatives below, and until the end of that battle round, that Synaptic Imperative is active for your army, while all Tyranid units from your army are within Synapse range of your army. They will benefit from it. Each Synaptic Imperative can only be selected once. So that's a lot of words to just say you pick one of these rules, and your Synaptic Aura from your Synapse keyword units will also piggyback this aura for the whole battle round, your turn and your opponent's. We have Synaptic Augmentation. While this unit is within Synapse range of your army, models in this unit have a 5-up invuln save. So this just gives you multiple potential auras of 5-up invulnerable saves. This is great for your hordes of Gaunts, as well as your other non-invuln monsters and creatures such as Tyranofexes, Raveners, Warriors, things like that. Horsepexes. It also is within Synapse range, not wholly within. So you can have 20 Gaunts strung out and just one little Gaunt towing in to that 6-inch bubble, and the whole unit gets this ability or one of the other 2. Moving forward, we have Surging Vitality. While this unit is within Synapse range of your army, add 1 to advance and charge rolls made for this unit. This is very good. Our only advance and charge unit is the Hormagaunts, who can do it with your datasheet roll. But this also does help out the Norn Assimilator, who with his harpoons and harpooned rule can get +2 to the charge. It means you can rapid ingress him off of a board edge and turn a potential 9-inch charge into a 6-inch with this imperative, because it itself is a Synapse creature, as well as the harpoon roll giving it +2 to charge. So Hormagaunts and Norn Assimilators benefit the most from this, and particularly Hormagaunts with their innate ability to advance and charge. But everything does like a +1 advance roll. Gargoyles to get a little bit of extra movement, maybe to clear a wall or get 1 or 2 more guys on an objective for a contest play. It's just always good to have mobility and, to get a little bit more security on those charges. And last, we have Goaded to Slaughter. While this unit is within Synapse range of your army, each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Just +1 to hit in melee. Particularly good on a lot of our big melee monsters. Horsepexes hit on 3s. Maliceptors hit on 3s. Things such as Raveners and Tyranid Warriors as well hit on 3s natively, so they very much appreciate this buff. Also, things that do hit on 2s, like Hive Tyrants and our Gene Stealers. There are many ways to get -1s to hit in this game, and so just offsetting that is also very nice. So all of these are very useful, and you can pick them in any battle round you need. That does mean there will be 2 battle rounds where you don't have a rule, but most of the time you won't use one in round 1, and most of the time by round 5 comes around, both armies are so devastated you don't really have a need for one or the other. So I've played this attachment quite a few times, and I've never found myself lacking for, when not having a 4th option, so to speak. Going on to the enhancements, we have Power of the Hive Mind for 10 points, And this can go on a Tyranid Psyker model only, which we do have multiple Psyker characters, but for reasons that we may clear in a second, you'll see it only goes on one model. It is improve the strength and armor penetration characteristic of psychic weapons equipped by the bearer by 1. And the only Tyranid character we have that can take an enhancement that is a psychic weapon is in fact the Neuro Tyrant, which is its flamer. And this it's already a decent flamer with a profile of 18 inches, 2d6 shots, ignores cover, strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage, psychic torrent. This makes it strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage. And at that point, you are very dangerous to quite a few profiles in the game. Anything from Terminators down to Elves and Sisters of Battle do not want to just take that for no reason. Our next enhancement is the most expensive one in this attachment. It is the Psychostatic Disruption. For 30 points, it goes on a Tyranid Synapse model only. And enemy units that arrive on the battlefield from reserves cannot be set up within 12 inches of the bearer. In addition, once per battle during the first or second battle round, when your opponent declares a unit will arrive on the battlefield from strategic reserves, the bearer can use this enhancement, and if it does, you roll a d6. On a 4-up, that enemy unit cannot arrive this turn. So, a lot of word salad here. First of all, it is a 12-inch aura of no-go zone. Very nice for just screening out a section of the board. You don't want to worry about your opponent arriving. Next up, it is also quite a fun way to maybe block your opponent's plans. If they want to bring something in, either arrive turn 1, bottom of 1, a Callidus 1-up wants to come down and get an easy objective, or come in turn 2, drop some Terminators on a backfield corner you left open. This is a nice potential get out of jail free card to tell them, nope, you have to wait till next turn to do that. This one is rarely taken, especially now since the 3-inch deep strike has gone to 6 inches game wide. This has been less taken because screening is not normally a problem Tyranid armies have. From Monster Crusher, relatively elite model count to hordes, we have the base sizes and the unit count to usually screen pretty well. Also, 30 points is entirely too much for what that does. Next up, we have Synaptic Control. This is the other auto take next to the Power of the Hive Mind Flamer enhancement. This is a Tyranid Synapse model only. It's going to be a Hive Tyrant. Each time an attack is allocated to the bearer, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack. This is fantastic. Damage cannot be reduced to 0 by this unless something explicitly says reduce damage to 0. So this has nothing for damage 1 weapons. But there are a plethora of melee damage 2 weapons, legacy weapons in multiple armies, as well as damage 3 weapons that Hive Tyrants do not want to take. They are T10 2-up, 4-up, and so with cover, they're taking AP 3 shots, on 4s anyway, and possibly less, as we'll see here in a minute. But this just gives them another level of durability. Not quite as good as the Feel No Pain from Invasion Fleet, but very comparable in a lot of cases. And the longer you can keep your Hive Tyrant alive, the better you'll feel. The last one is my personal favorite enhancement. Though it's rarely taken, it really does play into the way I play Tyranids personally. And it is the Dirge Heart of Karis, an aura, or it gives an aura to a model. It is for 15 points put on a Synapse model, while an enemy unit is within 9 inches of the bearer, worsen that unit's leadership characteristic by 1. This is very nice because it combines well with your Neuro Tyrant's datasheet ability to subtract 1 from a battleshock test caused by Shadows in the Warp. You can have Death Leaper around to give another -1 leadership, this -1 leadership, and if you have a Synapse creature, which this model has to be, or if the Neuro Tyrant's close, or a Hive Tyrant or a Maliceptor, or what have you, is another -1 to the battleshock test. So now you have -2 on their leadership, -2 on the battleshock test. Even if it's not, that much of a Candyland scenario, your Neurolictors throwing out their battleshock test at the beginning of your opponent's command phase, this minus, or beginning of your command phase, I apologize, will still stack. Death Leapers, which is in your opponent's command phase for being below starting strength, will stack. It is just very nice to have and disrupt your opponent's ability to score primary they thought they were going to score, or give you 5 more points they weren't counting on. It's just very disruptive. Moving on to the stratagems, we have the Smothering Shadow. All of these are 1 CP. There are no 2 CP stratagems in this attachment. And first up, this is any phase just after an enemy unit fails a battle shock test. 1 Synapse from your army within 12 inches of that enemy unit who just failed their battle shock test. You roll 6d6, and for each 3+ that enemy suffers a mortal wound. This is kind of GW's way of giving Tyranids a grenade-like effect. A couple of important things. This is within 12 inches, so it's a bit further than grenades. There is no stipulation that you couldn't have advanced or fallen back. And you do not have to be within line of sight, just within that 12 inches. And it is any phase, and so you can do it in your command phase, your opponent's command phase. If you have Screamer Killers that shoot someone and they fail the battle shock test caused by their data cheat ability, you can get some mileage out of this. It is more of a pocket strat, but when it comes up, you have to get those last 3 wounds off a tank or kill a couple models, you know, it can come in handy. We have Synaptic Channeling next. It is in your command or the command phase, yours or your opponent's. You pick 1 Synapse unit from your army, and until the end of a turn, while friendly Tyranids are within 9 inches of the model you selected, they're within Synapse. This just buffs your generic Synapse aura from 6 to 9 inches. Which again, the only model that has a natural 9-inch Synapse aura is the Swarm Lord itself. We have Irresistible Will. This is, you know, what would be considered the bread and butter stratagem for this detachment. It is in your shooting or in your fight phase, and you pick 1 Synapse unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight that phase, and 1 enemy unit within 24 inches invisible to the Synapse unit you just chose. Until the end of that phase, shooting or fight, each time a friendly Tyranids model makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, if the attacking model is within 6 inches of your Synapse unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. Again, lots of word salad. You pick one of your Synapse units, usually a Maleceptor or a Zoanthrope unit strung out, and everything within 6 inches of them gets reroll 1s to hit, 1s to wound against the enemy target you chose. So a Land Raider, a Knight, the fortresses from Leagues of Votann, a Riptide. This also works in melee, which is very nice on like a Hive Tyrant, for example. You could give them, you know, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, even though they're twin linked, it's still nice to have. So this is just all around it's mostly used in the shooting, because a lot of our melee, especially the competitive melee, either already has inherent reroll 1s like Gene Stealers or Tyranid Warriors, or is twin linked like Tyranid Warriors or Hive Tyrants, for example. But Exocrines, Maleceptors, even Tyrannofexes love this. Also, the Zoanthrope unit themselves make great use out of it. Up next, we have Reinforced Hive Node for 1 CP, and this is your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Synapse unit from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of the attacker's attacks. Until the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, each time an attack targets your unit, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. This is just Armor of Contempt for Tyranids. It no longer lasts the whole phase, such as all Armor of Contempt effects in the game. It is only for 1 activation, but again, we have a lot of 2-up, 4-up monsters that are very tough, such as Norn Emissaries and the Simulators, Hive Tyrants, Flying Hive Tyrants, the Swarm Lord. It is even mass AP 1 attacks on a Maleceptor who has a 3-up save could go to a 4-up, or in shooting if it has cover, you know, you can turn AP 2 into AP 0. No one complains about having Armor of Contempt in their pocket. For us, it's called Reinforced Hive Node. Second to last, we have Imperative Dominance. It is in your command phase. You select 1 Tyranid unit from your army that is within Synaptic range of your army, and you select 1 Synaptic Imperative, even if you've already picked it this battle, and until the start of your next command phase, that Imperative is active for the unit you chose instead of any other that might be active. So you really need those Gaunts to live, you can give them a 5-up invuln again. You really want to send some Hormagaunts across the board, or have your Norn Simulator make its charge, you can give it +1 to charge. +1 to hit in melee if you really need some damage through. You do have to call your shot in your command phase. You can't do it in the phase you need it, but this is one of those good to have, but you're not always going to use it stratagems. And finally, we have Override Instincts, a stratagem Tyranids have desperately needed, and they got it in this attachment. It is in your movement phase, one Tyranids unit, doesn't have to be Synapse, from your army that is within Synapse range and has made a fallback move this phase. Your unit is eligible to shoot and charge and declare a charge this turn. So you can do it on any Tyranids unit you want, not just the Synapse ones, but as long as they are within Synapse range. I apologize. And as long as you meet those criteria, you can fall back, shoot, and charge. This is fantastic on Maleceptors, Tyrannifexes, Exocrines. Synapse creatures don't got to worry about it because they're always within the range of their own aura. So warriors could always fall back and charge. Gene Stealers being led by a Broodlord. Very good to just keep control of your damage phases of the game. That is Synaptic Nexus. It is encouraging you to take the Synaptic keyword creatures. Your Maleceptors, definitely a Neurotyrant, a Hive Tyrant, a Swarm Lord of some sort. Norns are pretty decent in this attachment as well as smaller things to key off of them, such as Gene Stealers with the Broodlord, maybe, definitely some Gargoyles or Termagants, Pyrovore. Very, very good. Screamer Killers, love every single buff you can give them. +1 to charge, +1 to hit in melee. They hit on 3s and a 5-up invuln. They just have a 2-up save and no invuln. So, lots of data sheets. Even though the rule is kind of centered around Synapse, the fact that it affects the aura of Synapse itself, not just those key creatures with those keywords, gives you a lot of flexibility in where you can go with it. Going up next, we have Unending Swarm. This is the least popular attachment right now, as one of the key stratagems that made it work kind of got nerfed pretty heavily in a game-wide hit. But we will go over it anyway, because it does still exist, and you may see it on the table across from you, or want to run it. Their detachment rule is insurmountable odds. Each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot, if after that enemy unit has finished making its attacks, if one or more models from one of your Endless Multitude units from your army were destroyed as a result of those attacks, each such unit can make a surge move. To do so, roll 1d6. That unit can be moved a distance in inches equal to the result, but it must end as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, excluding aircraft. When doing so, those models can be moved within engagement range of enemy units. However, you cannot make a surge move while it's battle shocked. There's a lot here. So the first thing to point out is you have to lose a model. You can't just be shot and they hit but don't wound, or you shrug them off on saves or feel no pains. A model has to die. To go over Endless Multitude real quick, those are your Gaunts. Those are your Hormagaunts, Termagants, and Gargoyle units that key off of this. I believe Neurogaunts as well, but they are slightly different than the other three. They are, in fact, Endless Multitude. So yes, the Neurogaunts, Hormagaunts, Termagants, and Gargoyles are all what this is, can make this surge move it's talking about. The next thing to note is each such unit. So if someone splits fire, say with a Chaos Knight, they fire indirect at one and their main gun at another, both of them can make this surge move. The last thing I want to say is the unit must end as close as possible. So you can move the closest model to, say, that enemy knight. The other, let's just say 15 models that are left alive can go in any direction they want, because you've already filled the quota of the unit ending as close as it possibly can. So you can stretch out and grab objective, put the 3 or 4 guys behind a wall in case he keeps whittling you down and you want to keep part of it alive. There are, as I said in the first episode, your imagination is really the limit, and the number you roll on the surge dice. And even though it says it, yes, you can end with an engagement range. So if someone does put themselves 3 inches away and, you know, or like 2.7 and you roll the 2, you do have to get engagement with them. You don't have a choice. So, but there are tricks to be pulled as well, as if you're, you know, cunning and looking at all your options, not just the most obvious ones. Going on to the enhancements, we have our first enhancement for 20 points. It is Relentless Hunger. It is a Tyranids model only, and you add 2 to the move characteristic of models in the bearer's unit. I don't know why you take this. There aren't many things you really want it on. Nothing can really lead Hormagaunts. Only a Winged Prime can lead Gargoyles. And as far as I know, nothing can lead Termagants. So, and Gargoyles don't really need more movement with what they innately do on their data sheet. So, probably not going to see this. I mean, you could theoretically put it on a Broodlord and put it in a Genestealer unit, and now your Genestealers move 10. There are leader units, warriors on a Wing Prime and a warrior unit, make them move 8 base, and the Wing Prime moves 14. But this is not taken often, and it's in the wrong detachment. Other detachments would love this. This is not what this detachment is trying to do. Naturalized Camouflage, a Tyranids model only. At the start of the first battle round, you can select up to 3 friendly Endless Multitude units within 9 inches of the bear, and until the end of each battle round, or end of that battle round, each time a ranged attack targets one of those 3 units you chose, models in those units have the benefit of cover against that attack. This is 30 points to give 3 units cover for the first battle round within 9 inches of the guy holding it. Don't. This is not at all worth it. You can put in a unit of Venom Thrope for the same effect, or just hide behind Tyranid and not be shot. If you're shooting indirect, you're already getting cover. This is not... Don't take this. Piercing Talons for 25 points on a Tyranids model. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack on a critical wound, which is a 6 to wound, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Again, if it was just +1 AP on the wound, but a critical wound, like even though we are known for having a massive attack, 40 from Genestealers, 36 from Warriors, with sustained hits being led by a Prime. Raveners have 7 attacks each, so they can get 42 as well. It just, you're banking on anywhere from 4 to 6 of those wounds having an extra AP, and most of them are AP 1 or 2 anyway. It's not taken often. It's just because it's you're paying 25 points to get 4 to 5 more AP on your attack sequence. It's not it. Adrenalized Onslaught for 15 points, the final enhancement. In a Tyranid model only, each time the bearer's unit piles in or consolidates, model in this unit can move an additional 3 inches. This is the cheapest and probably the only one worth taking. Like if you had a long bomb Genestealer turn 1 charge, or warriors who you rapid ingress behind a wall and the Prime made it in, like only 2 of his friends did, this could really help. This could really help get those extra attacks into actual engagement and pile the damage you need. Still kind of niche, but of the 4, this, in my opinion, is the most reasonable one to justify for a game plan and to get usefulness out of. We have 6 stratagems. 5 of them are 1 CP, 1 is 2 CP. So starting with Synaptic Goading, it is in any phase just before an Endless Multitude unit in your army within Synapse range makes a surge move. And you target that Endless Multitude unit, and when making the surge move, you can re-roll the d6 to determine how far your unit moves. So you roll a 1 or a 2, you don't like that. Or if you needed a 5 to get to safety and you rolled a 4 and you're dead either way if you don't get the 5. Stuff like that. You can re-roll it. But there's a part 2 to this as well, and your unit can end that move as close as possible to the closest objective marker instead of as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. All other rules for making surge moves apply. This is very nice. This is where it can get quite tricky, because same thing. Your unit can end as close as possible to the objective marker. So maybe you don't want to get into engagement with a guy who got 2.7 inches away from you. Maybe you do want to go just behind this wall, or make your 2-inch charge now an 8-inch charge because you moved 6 inches and you tagged this objective that he just killed what he thought was the last thing that was going to be on it for his turn or her turn. This plays right into the tricky creativity that Tyranids bring to games. Unending Waves is the 2 CP stratagem. It is in any phase, one endless multitude unit from your army that was just destroyed. You can use a stratagem on it even though it was destroyed. Add a new unit to your army identical to the destroyed unit in strategic reserves at its starting strength. The 2 restrictions are any character units that were attached to your unit are not returned, and you can only use the stratagem once per battle. This is the nerf that this detachment was affected by. Game-wide, Games Workshop said any recursion type stratagems bring that unit back even though it was just died, can only be used once per battle. This took the Unending Swarm and did in fact make it the Ended Swarm, because people would use this to bring back 20 gargoyles and 20 gargoyle, and you would just see 1 or 2 units, 20 gargoyles turned into 6 or 7. It was quite nice. It still is quite nice, but once a game at the rate that Gaunts die, it is unfortunately not enough. But it is good to have, and good to put an extra anywhere from 130 to 190 points in your list. Next up, we have Teeming Masses for 1 CP. It is in your opponent's shooting or the fight phase just after an enemy selects its targets. One endless multitude from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of those attacking units' attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, -1 to hit. It is on demand, -1 to hit for your swarms for 1 CP. It's just good, and it works in shooting and melee. So, like we just talked about Synaptic Nexus, there are ways to get -1 to hit in melee as well, and people don't often expect it, because the most common way, stealth, doesn't apply to melee, but this specifies it does. So we can really throw someone's elite unit that hits on 3s or 2s even without rerolls into 3s or 4s without rerolls. And suddenly, instead of wiping your unit, you have 6-7 guys left, all OC2. You still hold the objective or completed your secondary you were trying to do. It's very nice. No one complains about -1 for a defensive bump. Next up, we have Swarming Masses. So that was the Teeming Masses. This is the Swarming Masses. For 1 CP, in your shooting or the fight phase, you pick 1 endless multitude unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight. Until the end of the phase, weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Sustain Hits 1 ability, and if your unit contains 15 or more models, each time a model unit makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. This is probably best onto a unit of 20 Hormagaunts. You just send them in and just have them slice and dice, getting crit 5 hits. They hit on 4s anyway, so 66% of their attacks are being doubled. It's not going to end anyone's world, but it could drop down, a 10-man heavy intercessor unit to 5 or 4 men before they even leave the deployment zone. It'll absolutely wreck, any amount of scouting squads, rangers, things Hormagaunts would normally kill. Anyway, this is just a good way to push that over the edge. As far as Termagon and Gargoyles, if you really, really needed some amount of damage to happen, or had lethal hits from the Tervagon, this would also give them sustained lethal 5s on a Termagon squad, which is also not nothing. Moving on to Bounding Advance, you pick 1 endless multitude unit, and in your movement phase, and until the end of the phase, each time that unit advances, you don't make an advance roll. Instead, you just add 6 to the move characteristic of models in that unit. Flat 6-inch advance. As I said inside the Nexus, Hormagaunts, which are endless multitude, have advance and charge, and are move 10 baseline. So you could have them just move 16 and charge turn 1, but you could also have Termagaunts move 6, Gargoyles, if you need them to make that 24-inch move, they move 12, advance 6, and then shoot and scoot 6 inches as well. You can really use this for more than just the Hormagaun advance and charge in their face and try to block them in. And finally, we have Preservation Imperative for 1 CP. It's in your opponent's shooting phase just after the enemy selects its targets. You pick 1 endless multitude unit from your army that was selected as target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. And until the end of the phase, your unit is treated as containing fewer than 5 models for the purposes of blast abilities. This is where you really start to see returns, because now you can make them -1 to hit to the end of the phase. You can make them not affected by blast to the end of the phase. If you have zone thropes, they can have a 6-up invuln. A psychophage will give them a 6-up feel no pain. You could go to ground for a 6-up invuln if your zone thropes are dead, or you just bring them on your list. Now you could really start to make a 20-man unit of Gaunts much harder than anyone would think to kill. This detachment, as you see, does revolve just around your Gaunts. There are some things for other supplementary units, either to support your Gaunts or to go out and do a bit more of direct damage. But I said overall, this is one of the weaker detachments because of killing Gaunts, even with all those things, is not even close to impossible over 5 turns of active Warhammer gameplay. But if you do want to play the Swarm, that is very conducive to that playstyle. Next up, we have the Warrior Bioform Onslaught. This was the Grotmus attachment we got. This did not come with the Codex, and as the name says, it focuses on our 2 Warrior datasheets. So the detachment rules is Tyranid Warriors, Tyranids with the ranged bioweapons, and Tyranid Warriors with melee bioweapons units. They gain the Tyranid Warriors and battle line keywords. And while such a unit is not battle shocked, models in those units have objective control of 3. So there are 2 different Tyranid Warrior datasheets. There is the ranged bioweapon and melee bioweapon versions. They have different rules, different cost points. GW split them. The Tyranid Warrior is no longer one datasheet. This takes both of them and moves them from other data sheets in the app, for example, to battle lines. You could take 6 of each. You could take a 72 model count, 36 melee warriors, 36 ranged warriors, and have 200-ish points for characters and enhancements if you wanted to. Leader Beast, Tyranid Warriors and Winged Tyranid Prime units in your army have a 5-up invulnerable save. So now we have OC3 Tyranid Warriors who are T5 with a 4-up armor save, now have a 5-up invuln save, which they are all too happy to have. So and also the Winged Tyranid Prime, which can lead Tyranid Warriors, either the range or melee variants, as well as Gargoyles. So you could give a 20-man brick of Gargoyles a 5-up invuln if that's something you wanted to do. Going into the enhancements, we have the first one, which is the cheapest at 10 points. It is Synaptic Tyrant. A Neurotyrant model from your army, or Neurotyrant model only, during your Declare Battle Steps formation step, the bear can be attached to a Tyranid Warriors unit. Normally, a Neurotyrant can only lead zone tropes. This is paying 10 points to let it join a warrior unit. What it does while leading a unit, it gives it +1 to hit, which just means this unit always hits on 2s, because it's the melee warriors hit on 3s. And if you are attacking a battle-shocked unit, your opponent is battle-shocked, you get +1 to wound. It is a bit iffy, but as we've discussed, battle shock is kind of a thing Tyranids can lay on in droves, so isn't the most impossible thing. Going further, that also, though, does give that unit the infantry from Tyranid Warriors and monster keywords from the Neurotyrant itself. So that is, if your opponent does have anti-infantry, anti-monster stuff, it will trigger both of those on that unit. Going forward to Ocular Adaptation for 20 points, goes on a Winged Tyranid Prime. And each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Again, Tyranid Warriors hit on 3s notoriously. I believe the heavier weapons and the ranged Tyranid bioforms hit on 4s. So just a +1 to hit on 2s. The Tyranid datasheet rule is the same as Blade Guard. At the start of the fight phase, you can choose to reroll 1 to hit or 1 to wound. Or I'm sorry, 1s to hit or 1s to your saving throws. So hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and if the Winged Prime is leading them, giving them this enhancement, then he gives them sustained hits. A Tyranid Warrior unit, full unit of 6 melee warriors, led by a Winged Prime hitting on 2s and rerolling 1s, averages 42 hits of Strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage, twin linked attacks. It is very nasty. I have chopped down Greater Demons. I have chopped, Armigers in half, killed a Land Raider. These things can do some damage when leveraged properly. Going on to sensory assimilation, a winged Tyranid prime model only. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, -1 to hit. This is just an always-on -1 to hit for 20 points. Like shooting melee, it is not bad, particularly when you have that 5-up invuln as well backing you up. It makes taking those punches quite a bit more reasonable. I should also say that Tyranid warriors are a T5 3-wound model themselves, both the range and the melee, so they are not free to kill either. And finally, we have elevated might for 30 points. This is the most expensive one. Tyranid models only. The bearer's unit is able to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. This is very nice on warriors, as they only move 6 and the prime moves 12, so you can get a little tricky with the movement there. But where I particularly like is 1 unit of 10 Gene Stealers with a Broodlord, because they do not advance and charge innately, and they are great to get the party started while you stage your warriors and other bioforms in your Tyranid list for rounds 2 through 5. Let them take care of, some Gene Stealers, maybe a Lictor, some Ryan's Leapers, a Hormagon squad. Just let them handle the battlefield on their side while you get yours ready and get a points lead. But this again could go on a winged Tyranid prime and a warrior unit, potentially a gargoyle unit if that's something you were interested in. Please don't do that, but you could. Those are the 4 enhancements. Now we have the 6 stratagems, of which all 6 of them are 1 CP as well. There are no 2 CP stratagems in this attachment. So getting into the first one, we have Synaptic Amplification. This is in your shooting phase or the fight phase. You pick 1 Tyranid unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. If that unit is a Tyranid's warriors unit, select up to 1 Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked and within 6 of it. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in those units make an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. And if it's a Tyranid warriors unit, reroll hit rolls of 1 as well. Again, so this is, you can take a Tyranid warrior unit and let it reroll wound rolls of 1 and hit rolls of 1, which this really helps the ranged warriors who don't have the same rule as the melee ones. Their melee warriors are twin linked and can get reroll 1s at the beginning of the fight phase to hit, but the ranged warriors do not have that luxury. So, and you could also give it to your gargoyles or your termagants, and they have special weapons, or even your hormagants rerolling 1s to hit and 1s to wound. We have Spontaneous Hyper Corrosion. This is in your shooting or the fight phase. You pick 1 Tyranid unit from your army that's not been selected to shoot or fight that phase. And until the end of that phase, you add 2 to the strength characteristic of ranged weapons by models in that unit, and add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by Tyranid warriors and winged prime models in that unit. So theoretically, you could get a Tyranid warrior to strength 7, which does do the break point, help the break point with both T6, T7, and T12, improving all of those. But more importantly, you can put this on a Maliceptor to give it a strength 12 gun, or an Exocrine to give it a strength 11 gun. Or you could make a Tyrannofex's Flamer strength 8. There are quite, because it is a Tyranid's unit from your army, this is quite the buff. Or you could give it to Zoanthropes if you brought them and give them a strength 14 last cannon equivalent. So there are quite a few tricks for this, and it is almost always better in shooting than in melee, but it's 1 CP and you can use it in both phases. So go crazy. This would be the bread and butter. You're going to use it 4 to 5 turns out of the game because it is just so good. Next up, we have Restorative Impulse in your command phase. It is 1 Tyranid warrior unit from your army that is below its starting strength, and you return 1 destroyed model, excluding characters, back to the unit. This is great. This is just we love recursion. This is just another unit back, and in this attachment, it is 3 OC, which can be all the different. They have 5 guys on and 1 warrior lived. Oops, now it's 2 warriors. You have 6 OC. You just scored that primary. Very nice. We have Synaptic Micronodes for 1 CP as your movement phase. 1 Tyranid's warriors unit from your army. You select 1 objective marker you control that your unit is within range of it, and That objective marker remains under your control until your opponent's level of control over it is greater than yours at the end of a phase. So this one is kind of tricky. It is the bad timing for sticky objectives because it is in your movement phase. So you can't do it in your command phase, then move off of it. You have to have a warrior unit either already be on it and then use it and then move them off of it, or move to it and then sticky it, and then even if they get shot off, you still hold it, which there is value there. But it is the second best timing for sticky objectives, not quite the best. Then we have Parasitic Payload. One Tyranid's warriors unit with ranged bioweapons from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase, it is in your shooting phase only. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by the models in your unit have the Ignore Cover ability. After your unit has resolved its shooting attacks, this phase, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the turn, all models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. So it gives a Tyranid warrior with ranged bioweapon unit Ignore Cover and strips cover for the rest of your army until the end of the turn. All very nice. This is very good. Maliceptors with AP2 love this. Execremes with AP3. You're going to AP2 with cover, love this. Very, very nice. Then we have Synaptic Shield for 1 CP for the last stratagem. It is in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit selects its targets. You pick one Tyranid warrior's unit from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. And if that unit is a Tyranid warrior's unit, select up to one Endless Multitude, so Neurogaunt, Hormagaunt, Termagaunt, or Gargoyle unit, that is not battle shocked and within 6 inches of the warrior unit you selected. Until the end of the phase, each time a ranged attack targets one of those units, if the strength of the characteristic is greater than the toughness characteristic of that unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So this is just -1 to wound if strength is higher. And so, if you're shooting you with strength 6 or strength 4 or higher, you can make them wound you on 4s or 3s rather than 2s and 3s. Just a good durability bump all around. It's if they shoot you out with like castigators, when they're 3 heavy bolters and then there are auto cannons, it's just nice to shave some of that damage off the top. That's the Warrior Bioform Onslaught. It is actually quite the mixed bag. Even though it focuses heavily around warriors, you do want a good mix of supplementary units like shooting, some Endless Multitude units, gargoyles, hormagaunts. I prefer to run a Broodlord and Gene Seals with the Advance and Charge enhancement. You will see why here very soon. And yeah, Zoanthropes are very good in it as well. There's a lot of flexibility, and that's part of what my passion for this army, as I told you on episode 1, is the limit is your creativity. Like, for example, the ranged warriors, you take 3, maybe 4 units of them of minimum of just 3-man squads and call it a day just to make sure you can consistently proc that Ignore Cover, and they are great sticky objective holders. You put them somewhere where they can get line of sight, put 1 out to sea, 2 behind a wall or in terrain where they can't be shot but still are on the objective, and then next turn you got a sticky objective and you strip their cover. Or even pull them off the objective and then in your turn regrow them on with the Restorative Impulse stratagem. So you score the primary, you're there for your movement phase to sticky it. There's a lot here to be explored, and it is a very exciting detachment. But not the most exciting, because for that we saved it for last. If you're following me along on the app, you'll notice I skipped over this one, the Vanguard Onslaught, and that is because it is my personal favorite. Those of you who've been on the channel for a while know that I started in 8th edition playing Kraken. When the 9th edition Codex came out, I also went right to Kraken as well. I did not jump on the Leviathan train that was busted Tyranids on release. Fast, tricky bugs is my playstyle, and this is the detachment for those of you who are of like minds. What does it do? Well, first, it is Tyranids. It is questing tendrils. Tyranids with this ability are eligible to charge in a turn in which they fell back. So, first of all, everything in your army can fall back and declare a charge. Control the fight phase. We talked about in Synaptic Nexus. It's very nice to have that. Part 2 is Vanguard Invader keyword units with this ability are eligible to charge in a turn in which they advanced. And the other detachment rule, we will come back to that Vanguard Invader, don't you worry, is Death Leaper loses the Hunter Organism rule and can be your Warlord. Death Leaper, a named character, specifically has Hunter Organism, saying it cannot be chosen as your Warlord under normal circumstances. But in Vanguard Onslaught, you can make this T6, 7 wound, 3 up save, 4 up invuln, fight first, lone op, with 6 strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage attacks hitting on 2s, your Warlord. As far as Vanguard Invader, that is going to be the Death Leaper, the Parasite of Mortrex, the Flying Hive Tyrant, the Winged Tyranid Prime, Gargoyles, the Harridan, Hive Crone, Harpy, your Lictors, Neurolictors, and Von Ryan's Leapers. And I believe those are all your Vanguard Invaders, though you can make Warriors Vanguard Invader keyworded by adding that Winged Tyranid Prime into those units as their leader. So even Tyranid Warriors units with the Winged Prime leading them are Vanguard Invader. So moving on to the enhancements, we have Hunting Grounds, a one that I've always used and is my favorite enhancement for this attachment. It is on any Tyranid model only. While the bearer is on the battlefield, each time your opponent sets up a reserve unit on the battlefield, roll 1d6. On a 2-up, that unit immediately takes a battle shock test. This is great. Things I like going up and down, the Calidus Assassin, Grey Knights, Demons. You can just guard when they had their Scions, Gaunt's Ghosts. You can just make them gamble on whether or not this is what they want to do. This is from reserve, so this is Deep Strike or coming in from strike reserves off of a board edge. This is a Gene Stealer Cult, ironically enough. This also really messes with them. So it's super, super good. It is 20 points, and your opponent will not remember it turn 3 or 4. They'll bring something in, and you remind them to take a battle shock test, and now suddenly that containment they wanted to do, or that counting for engaging all fronts because they got to be not battle shocked, is suddenly lost. It is a wonderful enhancement. It is a bit roll the dicey, but this is a dice game we're playing. What are you going to do? Going on to Chameleonic, the next enhancement for 15 points, a Vanguard Invader model only. The bearer has the stealth ability, and each time a ranged attack targets the bearer's unit, models in it have the benefit of cover against that attack. I put this on my Flying Hive Tyrant. This is wonderful. Your Flying Hive Tyrant is now -1 to hit. It is T9, not T10 like the normal Hive Tyrant. So a little bit of extra durability goes a long way, and always having cover with a 2-up save. The amount of AP2 things I get shot with that I take 3s on is not minimal, I'll tell you that. So it's very nice. Going on to Stalker, a Tyranid Vanguard Invader model only. At the start of the battle, select one enemy unit. Each time the bearer makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll and add 1 to the rune roll. This is 10 points. It's cheap, and that is quite good because this is very easy to play around for your opponent. And while I won't say it's not good, particularly on a Flying Hive Tyrant who can advance and charge, and is very mobile in many other ways we'll get into, it is not the one I take. I take the other 3, but this is not to be overlooked. Finally, we end with Neuronode, and this is a Tyranids model only. After both players have deployed their armies, you select up to 3 Vanguard Invader units and redeploy all those units. While doing so, any of those units can be placed in strategic reserves regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. This is just a redeploy of 3 Vanguard Invader units, and with the FAQ that GW put out saying infiltrators can re-infiltrate using redeploys, all those lictors that you have, Death Leapers, Von Ryan's Leapers, you can deploy super aggressively. Your opponent maybe is a bit afraid or intimidated and deploys back. And you go, actually, you know what? You might go first. I pick him up and now put him over here safely behind a ruin in no man's land, but where you can't get to him turn 1. Or I've deployed Gene Stealers on the line, and my opponent's like, I don't want to risk you going first. I want to move back. Then I'm like, never mind. I put him back behind the wall. Super good. Super good. That is 20 points there as well. So 4 enhancements. None of them are useless. And, 2 of them are quite good. Hunting Grounds and Neuronode are fantastic. And then Chameleonic and Stalker are both, just great. One's a defense buff and one's an offensive buff. Going forward, we have the 6 stratagems. One of them is 2 CP, the other 5 are 1 CP. First up, we have Surprise Assault. This is in your shooting phase or the fight phase, just after a Vanguard Invader unit has selected its targets. You pick that Vanguard Invader unit and select one enemy unit that was a target of one or more of your unit's attacks. That enemy unit must take a Battle Shock test, and until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll. If the Battle Shock test was failed, add 1 to the wound roll as well. This is great. This, especially in your opponent's fight phase, is catastrophic. I have stolen so many plays for my opponents by just out of sequencing Battle Shocking them with Lictors and Death Leaper all fight first. So they charge me, I fight first to activate this. Now they're 0 OC and I still have a Neurolictor on the objective, or that was too far away to multi-charge or something. And we'll get to that in the stratagem later and how you can manipulate this stuff. As well as the almost, on-demand +1 to wound. I've had Warriors run in. Warriors hit on 3s like we just talked about in Warrior Bioform Onslaught. This gives them a +1 to hit regardless of the Battle Shock test. So they hit on 2s, reroll 1s to hit. And then if they fail that Battle Shock, it's +1 to wound. And Warriors with hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, sustained hits, and +1 to wound, twin linked, strength 6, AP2, 1 damage, they kill a great many things in the game. If it is a T11 profile or less, other than a Catan, it is dying. I have dropped Angron, Magnus, Armigers with plenty of room to spare, Land Raider. This is awful if they fail this Battle Shock test. A couple things to note: you cannot multi-target with this. It is select one target that you chose as the target of your attacks, and you only get these buffs against it. So if you split, you are just hitting on your normal into the other unit. This is very good, though. I use this stratagem, I'd say 3 to 4 times a game. We have Assassin Beasts, which is 1 CP the fight phase, 1 Vanguard Invader infantry unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by your models in your unit have the precision ability. A lot of people write this off, and I'm just going to run a scenario by you guys real quick. That Warrior Brick I just told you, those 42 hits, strength 6, AP2, 1 damage, twin linked attacks coming at you, think of how many characters you have that want to take the brunt of that first. This is not Epic Challenge. A lot of people see it as Epic Challenge. It is not that. It is the whole unit gets precision. So I can, Technomancers in a Wraith unit, Custodian, Blade Champion to Trajan Valoris, and the in a Warden Brick, Morven Vol with her Vol guns. You can go in and just rip them out without having to do the hard work. And it says Vanguard Invader Infantry, which means you cannot do it with your flying Hive Tyrant, which is fine because he is effectively strength 10 thanks to the +1 strength in Synapse. And I should say Warriors are strength 5. I just default to strength 6 because they themselves are Synapse keywords, so they will always get the +1 strength in melee to make them an effective strength 6. But on the data sheet, they are strength 5, AP2, 1 damage. And a flying Hive Tyrant is strength 9, AP2, 3 damage, with the Synapse buff putting it to strength 10, twin linked, hitting on 2s. So if you really do need to kill 2 characters for whatever reason, you could Epic Challenge 1 with the Hive Tyrant because it is not infantry, so it cannot use the stratagem. And then and we haven't even talked about Gene Stealers yet, but you could rain Gene Stealers or your Warriors down onto another character with Assassin Beasts. And to keep this train going, all Lictors, Neurolictors, True Lictors, and Death Leaper have precision built in. So this is also the anti-character detachment, and it is very good at doing that job, I can tell you from experience. Next up, this is probably the least used stratagem, but I have even used this quite a few times, not quite a few, but a few times over my tenure running this attachment. It is Seated Broods. It is your movement phase. 1 Tyranid unit from your army that is in reserves, or 2 Vanguard Invader units that are in reserves. Until the end of the phase, for the purpose of setting up those selected units in the battlefield, you treat the current battle round as 1 number higher than it actually is. So, You can bring your units in on turn 1 if you wanted to. Top of 1, bottom of 1. Normally you can't. You can treat it as round 2. Another great use is people will leave their back if they say, what do you have in reserves? Like, oh, I just got a lictor, but he can rapid ingress for free. Your opponent will shrug and go, oh, well, you can't, come in my deployment zone on turn 2, or off my board edge, so I'm fine. And then you remind them, I have seeded broods, because we don't try to play gotchas with our opponents. You remind them, hey, if I spend a CP, I treat it like it's turn 3. I can just lone op your backfield in this corner further than 12 or behind out of line of sight, and I'm back here to go wreck your home or get behind enemy or do, establish locusts, and now I'm just here. So this is very good. It's one of those things you tell your opponent about. They just screen anyway, don't worry about it. But even then, sometimes they don't have that luxury, and you are able to use it. We are on to the 2 CP stratagem, Hypersensory Cilia. This is the second best stratagem. I would say tied with Surprise Assault, but also the hardest to use and to know when to use. This is in your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. You can target up to 2 Vanguard Invader units from your army that are within 9 inches of that enemy unit, or 1 Tyranid's infantry unit within 9 inches. The effect is selected units can each make a normal move up to 6 inches. The restriction is you cannot target units that are within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. So you can pick 1 Tyranid's infantry, so a Biovore, a Pyrovore, Gaunts, or 2 Vanguard Invaders, which is not infantry, so the Flying Hive Tyrant is eligible, all your Lictors, Genestealers, Warriors, and you can react to move them 6 inches. So let's say someone that's here, earlier you have a Lictor and a Neurolictor on an objective, and they're like, oh, I'll multi-charge both of them, I'll get within 4 inches for a fairly easy charge. You can then spread them, 6 inches apart to opposite ends of the objective, giving, one of them a really easy charge and the other one a super long charge. And because of how charging works, they have to base with every model that can. By the time they wrap Lictor number 1, are they able to string out and kill the Neurolictor with what's left, and not be, risk not being battle shocked by Surprise Assault to have 0 OC. You can also, do things like get out of lone op range. If they get, less than 6 inches away from you, you can just move your lone op 6 inches directly back, move behind walls, get your Flying Hive Tyrant, out of range or out of line of sight as well. The possibilities are endless, and because it is 2 Vanguard Invader, it is very good and very tricky. I have had a Genestealer unit where someone's only fell back 5 inches because that was their movement, and I moved them 6 inches behind the wall to where they couldn't charge me because they couldn't fit, and they're just there now. They're going to come at me next turn, and I'm like, yes, they are. So again, the more you think like a hive mind and look at a holistic picture, the more the value of this stratagem just skyrockets. Pairing onto that, we have Unseen Lurkers, and this, in my opinion, is the best stratagem in this detachment. This stratagem is insane. It is in your opponent's shooting phase just after it selects its targets. 1 Vanguard Invader unit from your army that was selected as 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, your unit can only be selected as targets of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 18 inches. 18-inch lone op, I use this all the time to protect my Gargoyles and Genestealers and potentially Warriors from indirect fire. Chaos Knights, Guards, some Eldar lists, I just say, no, leave my 10-man Genestealers alone. Leave my 10-man Gargoyles alone. Don't touch my Warriors. I haven't used them yet. And I tell them fire at something else. But the devious part comes next, or if your unit has the lone operative ability, if the attacking models is within 6 inches, your opponent can select new targets for the unit's attacks. So, as opposed to normal lone op being 12 inch, this shrinks the lone op to 6 inches, which is absurd and is made even worse when you remember Hypersensory Cilia, where you can move 6 inches away. And because of how engagement range and normal movement works, an enemy has to always at least be 1.1 inches away unless they either charge or have some special rule like the Surge move from Unending Swarm, where they can get with an engagement. And because 90% of the time they don't or aren't doing that, especially in their own movement phase, you can set it up to where they get 1.1 away. And I did this at an event, a team event in November. Someone took a Lancer to kill Death Leaper, and I moved it outside of 6. Then I lone opt it. Unseen Lurker to shrink its lone up to 6 inches, and they just couldn't shoot my Lictor, even though it was right there, like 8 inches away from them. This is very powerful. I always tell my opponent I have it. I always tell them I'm going to use it. And sometimes they don't make me spend the CP. They just don't want to do, like, you know what, you're going to loan off maybe I'm just going to shoot over here. Sometimes they're like, all right, there's value in making you spend the CP. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, I'm absolutely going to spend the CP. Keep in mind, all these 1 CP stratagems and Hypersensory Scylla being 2, the Flying Hive Tyrant does have the same rule as its walking counterpart, that once per player turn, not round, it can make it reduce a stratagem by 1 to a minimum of 0. So even though I say a lot of these are good and you want to use them, the longer you keep that Flying Hive Tyrant alive, the better your CP economy is going to be. And lastly, we have Invisible Hunter. And this is at the end of your opponent's fight phase. You pick up the 2 Vanguard Invader units from your army or 1 Tyranid's infantry unit from your army. And the effect is you remove them from the battlefield and place them in strategic reserves. And then the only restriction is the targeted units must be more than 3 inches away from all enemy units. So this is a little worse than the normal one, where normally it's within engagement range. This is a 3-inch range you can't be within. But you can pick up 2 units, and they do not have to come back down your next movement phase. So a trick I like to do is I like to leave 1 Lictor and, to put my Gargoyles on the field, or Death Leaper. And at the end of my opponent's turn 1, I just reduce this strat by 1, pick up my Gargoyles, pick up a Lictor and Death Leaper, throw them in reserves. Lictor's rapid ingress for 0 CP, and Death Leaper's my Warlord. So they're also both lone ops, and also Gargoyles are infamous for their shoot and scoot ability. So they come in 9, but they move 6 and touch an objective or get in a zone or move block. And so this is 1 CP at the top or bottom of 1, and then my opponent just has to worry about my reserves. And even every turn after, they say, do you have anything in reserves? And I'm like, well, not yet, but at the end of your turn, I could. At the end of your turn, I could. So, or you could do 1 Tyranid's infantry unit if you wanted to. So say someone precisioned out your Winged Prime from your warrior unit, you could still pick that warrior unit up and try to rapid ingress them later to do something with. There are, again, you are left quite open with versatility of this stratagem. This is, like I said, my favorite detachment, where that I love it, which is with Surprise Assault for on-demand +1 to hit, potentially +1 to wound, and just battle shocking them, reducing their OC. I like Assassin Beast, just unit-wide precision on warriors and Gene Stealers is absolutely... When I first started playing this attachment, I thought that and Seated Broods were going to be my 2 least used ones. I use Assassin Beast at least once every tournament, usually in like 5-round tournaments 2 or 3 times. It is very good. Seated Broods has its situational use if your opponent lets you. Normally most people won't, but it does tax them to screen. So it is very good early game to kind of force 1 or 2 units to not come as forward as they may want to. Hypersensory Scylla is one of the only double unit reactive moves, and it is so good, especially with the suite of lone ops. Episode 3, I will be going over data sheets, so you will see just how many lone ops we can potentially field and use to great effectiveness. Unseen Lurkers is insane. 6-inch lone op is just so unexpected and not accounted for in most people's playstyle that it just absolutely ruins days. Again, I tell my opponents they have it, but there's only so much you can do with your movement characteristic, rolling battle in advance, me getting too close, and I reactive move when you've already moved. So very, very good. And even Invisible Hunter with with Invisible Hunter and Seated Broods, you are manipulating your reserves at both ends. You are both putting stuff in and allowing yourself to take them out a turn earlier than you would normally be able to. So with reserve manipulation, movement manipulation, lone op manipulation, and combat manipulation with always on fallback and charge, because Gene Stealers can do that, every unit can do that. With surprise assault surprise assault is invaluable in the Death Guard matchup. I played a Death Guard player who picked -1 to hit, and I said, okay, my Gene Stealers hit on 2s, and I got surprise assault, for +1 to hit, so I go back to 2s, rerolling 1s to hit. And he was just flabbergasted. He's like, what about your warriors? I'm like, they hit on 3s, so they'll go to 4s, back to 3s, but sustained hits means they're effectively hitting on 2s and rerolling 1s. Because 3s rerolling 1s with sustained hits is the same as 2s rerolling 1s without sustained hits. So people who bank on these -1 to hit auras, not just stealth, but all the time, surprise assault handily solves that problem, and it piggybacks with a battle shock test with a potential +1 to wound. So all around, very good. This is a scalpel army, though. This is not a hammer. You have to be precise and know what you're doing and when you're doing it, because you still are Tyranids, and as we've talked about, and I will certainly talk about again next episode, you are not the most durable. These are not unsolvable problems. It is just how many problems can you give your opponent, and how many will they pick the wrong answer to. And this detachment, more than any other, in my opinion, for Tyranids, is the best at just throwing a myriad of what seems like unsolvable problems. You have 30 Gene Stealers in your face. You have lone op scoring points. You have warriors. You have I have Execrenes ready to shoot you if you dare to come out. Spore Mine is preventing you from advancing. It's just one layer on top of another that just builds up to 5 points here, 7 points there. Before you know it, I'm 30 points ahead and it's turn 5. So if this is your playstyle, you like the tricks, you like the 4D chess style of play, Vanguard Onslaught is definitely where to look. But with that, we are done with episode 2, and I hope to see you guys come back for episode 3, where we go over data sheets and a little bit more in depth of kind of how to use cases and opinions from a faction specialist that may not be so obvious upon first reading of where some units might thrive. But with that, everyone have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed this look into the Hive Mind.